Real quickly before we begin, I want to thank this video's sponsor, CarMarshal.com. CarMarshal.com can save you lots of money on buying used or new vehicles, cars, trucks, school buses. If you want to save money, I'll have a link in the description down below.
I'd like to welcome you all to the weekly We the People in Assembly conference call. We invite our public servants here. Our goal is to reestablish government centered under both our state and our national constitution. It is a very open call. We have two simple rules. Before you speak, you need to wait for the previous speaker to say, "I yield," in which case you ask for the floor by saying, "May I?" Upon being recognized, we ask that you come to your point as succinctly as possible and then yield the floor by saying, "I yield." If you are going to branch the discussion in a new way, please put in a preface of 1 or 2 sentences about the new subject matter. To start the call tonight, I've asked Andrew Sheets to briefly bring us up to date on what he's learned from his investigations in the Northport Police Department and the Charlotte County. Andrew, you have the floor.
All right. Yeah, this is Andrew with Charlotte County COPWATCH. I've been doing this for 5 years. So this is, real quick, this is what I found out. I found out months ago in Collier County, they illegally looked me up on the David system again. So I said, "Why did you look me up?" They said, "It's because you know a guy that's supposedly a sovereign. So supposedly, since he's a sovereign, that makes me a sovereign." So then I said, let's find out if this is happening everywhere. So we did a document request to Northport, Charlotte County Sheriff, Punta Gorda Police. And unbelievably, Northport was the first one to give us the list. There really is a list of sovereign citizens. There's 20 of them in Northport. I contacted 4 or 5 of them. I do not believe that they are terrorists, but that is what being on the sovereign citizens list makes you. The FBI and the police consider you an enemy of the state, an enemy of the police, and they consider you a terrorist. We asked for a definition of sovereign citizen. Nobody has a definition, which is insane. You're being labeled something which can literally mean when you're pulled over and a cop sees that, he thinks you're supposedly going to kill him, even though over 10 years there's only been supposedly 10 sovereigns that killed police, supposedly. So you could be shot, asked questions later. Some of these sovereigns I contacted, none of them I contacted are terrorists. They believe in a lot of them are Christians. They believe in the Constitution and their rights. Something else that's happening, we really, really want Charlotte County Sheriff and Punta Gorda Police to give us their sovereign citizens list. Because we have a tipster that's inside Punta Gorda Police Department that said they are abusing the labeling of sovereign citizens. So if they do not like you because you believe in the Constitution or your rights or you fight corruption with the police or the government, they will put you on the sovereign citizens list. So like I said, the bad part about being on the sovereign citizens list is that we are finding out this literally supposedly puts you under investigation. The FBI and the police have both suggested possible GPS tracking, watching your stuff online, possibly even, cell phone stingray unit, which is, a middleman for cell phones. They can get your voice, the data, the text, everything. So Mark and Roger, this is what I found out since I talked to you last week. So Charlotte County Sheriff and Punta Gorda Police said they have no sovereign citizens list. So I said, okay, fine. Give me the.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
So I said, give me the text, emails, documents, memos on sovereign citizens. Now we know we have something that is way out of hand. We already know that Charlotte County Sheriff hates sovereign citizens. Charlotte County Sheriff says they want $1,500 for the documents, even though they say they have no list. Why the hell would you have that? Anyway, so that's bad. Punta Gorda, this is very scary, said we have documents. You cannot have them because they are under investigation. It's under the intelligence. Unbelievable. Northport did respond. Northport has so much information on this. They want $600 for theirs.
And it was something like 5,000 emails, right?
Yes, that was the one. Oh, my God. You know, also, Roger, we found out from the lady that does Northport COPWATCH there, they are legally and illegally starting to scrub the list as we speak, because the lady in Northport found out her son is on the list, and we're not sure how because he's schizophrenic. So we don't know if that's one of his personalities that they picked to be on the list or what. But she said that, yes, the police chief said they're going through the list right now, and they're going to start scrubbing because they supposedly realize that, yeah, maybe this got a little bit out of control. So wherever anybody lives right now, I highly recommend doing a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, to their local police and to the local sheriff, and ask for the sovereign citizens. They call it an alert list, and then start contacting these people to find out. Here's the good part: we get to meet more people, and me and Roger and Mark have talked. If we maybe possibly have enough people on this, do we have a class action lawsuit for profiling, discrimination? It's kind of like saying that you're a Jew, you're black, or you're a Muslim. And like I said, the worst thing is they literally consider you a terrorist. That is insane.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I'd like to get the feeling from the audience today about how serious do you think this is an issue and whether we should do anything about it. Any comments? Open mic.
May I?
Yes.
I like to start in Ocala and just go visit the police station and other things. I don't see anything out of order, but I'd be curious to go check.
Okay. I would recommend you consider doing it in writing rather than in person, because then you've got the record.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Right.
Right? And then you would do it, even if you really want to do it, you would do it with a registered mail, because that's actually a common law court in the postal international land jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
May I?
Yes.
The definition of sovereign is from the FBI. You can get on the FBI website, and it's word for word what they told me in my home. And once they got in my house, they would not leave. I asked them to leave 3 times, and finally I asked them, was there a law involved? And they said no, they didn't know it, and so then they left.
I'm sorry, you asked them what?
Was there a law against owning an air compressor? And they said no. I said, okay, it's time for y'all to leave now. And then they left. I asked them 3 times previous to that, and they was treating me like crap. They had their hands on the gun the whole time.
You basically ordered them out then. It's time to leave.
Yeah.
Good move.
The sovereigns, I asked them 3 other times also in that same meeting what the definition of sovereign was, because they kept asking me, was I a sovereign? Well, they didn't know.
Yep.
Okay, I yield.
Okay, just so you know, our recommended answer is I'm one people of we the people. That's what we recommend people memorize and use. Whatever they call you, you say, no, I am one of the people, one people of we the people.
Actually, let me add something to that. There is a Supreme Court ruling, there's 2 of them, that says the people are sovereign.
Wow.
I told that to a highway patrolman last Sunday at church, and he said he didn't know of it, and he didn't believe it. I said, well, I'll show it to you. And, when the Supreme Court says you're sovereign, the sovereign citizen that they've defined is different.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
If I may.
Anybody else?
If I may.
Russ, please.
Yes,
Russ
I was
first.
in the courtroom with Hagan and others on Terry's recent case, sometime last year, not real recent, to get him out of release. And there was an LEO, a Florida plainclothes law enforcement officer. He had been investigating Terry, had hired airplanes to look at his property, all kinds of things he was bragging about. I know what's going on with the FBI in California and Florida and even in Europe. And at one point, he said, like-minded people like Hagan Smith, Roger Dowdell, and Terry Trussell are potential terrorists. Hagan can testify. I was sitting next to Hagan. I yield.
You wouldn't recall this guy's name, would you?
So you guys know it. He's been in the court, I think, before in Terry's case. I don't off the hand know.
Okay, thanks.
But Hagan will know. Bye-bye.
If I may,
Yes.
Roger, that was the guy, the FDLE. What's his name? Frank
Yeah.
Linton? Yeah. Another thing, recently I ran across again the video that I think it was Sadie Darnell, the Alachua County Sheriff, had played a big part in talking about sovereign citizens. Yeah, I think we need to check this out and straighten out their record. You know, it's something that this was with the Florida Sheriff's Association, and they're painting a very ugly picture of what's really going on. I yield.
Thank you. Good point.
May I?
Anybody else?
May I?
Yes.
Okay, staying with the sovereign citizen game, I said this earlier, but I don't know, I'll say it now more people are on, is when I was in jail in 2013 for handing out flyers about jury nullification on the courthouse steps, Judge Belvin Perry sentenced me to 151 days for not being in the free speech zone and 146 days for the flyer. And when I was in jail, I ended up doing 109 days total. Is when it was time for me to go to work release after 40 days, I'm going, okay, it's time for work release. And they went, no, you can't go because you're a gang member. And they asked if I had any tattoos. You know, I'm a fat old man. They're asking me if I'm a gang member. And then and I said, well, who put it in my file? And they go, we don't know, but it's in your file. You're a gang member. So I said, well, what gang? He says, the Sovereign Citizens Gang. So I couldn't go to work release.
Got it.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on unless someone else wants to say anything.
If I may.
Yes.
This is Bob. The fellow's name, FDLE, is Frank Linton. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry I started to say before, but my mute button and end button are too close together. All right, I yield.
Thank you. Okay, number 2 item. That was number 1. Number 2 item is on Saturday, Anna Von Reitz and another lady were guest speakers at the Texas Republic Congress. Texas Republic Congress. So this is we the people on the land jurisdiction in Texas holding their Congress. This is not the state of Texas legislature. This is the assembly of we the people. And the business portion of the meeting was pretty boring and straightforward, but then Anna Von Reitz was a guest speaker and another lady was a guest speaker. And I just want to make one point. I'm going to try to get a link to the recording, but the lady, Anna did a good job for anybody who is reasonably knowledgeable about the Constitution and the Declaration and where we are compared to that, but don't understand how or why this fraud got implemented. So she did a good job, but it's about a 2-hour speech, including Q&A. The lady that came up after her was extremely well-grounded and knowledgeable about the history, the Declaration. As an example, as a teenager, she said she read the Declaration of Independence every night before she went to bed. But at the end of the day, the key nugget, in my opinion, that she gave us was she said, look, every time they do something, they've got to give us the remedy. And the remedy that we haven't used, in her opinion, that is mandatory, is because the corporations really took over after the fighting or during the fighting of what the so-called Civil War, and the Lieber Code came into play, and the military rule came into play, and the Admiralty and Law of the Sea took over the court system. She said, what we must do is proclaim peace. We must proclaim peace. So she's got a petition where she's asking people to sign in order to somehow proclaim peace. And in my view, what then resonated for me was a document that could come from we the people in assembly, or it could come from a grand jury, or it could come from any one of us or more, that would be basically a three-topic title. It would be a proclamation of peace, comma, a quo warranto, comma, and notice of liability. And those three functions together, you'd lay the peace down first, which demands the law of peace, and then you'd go forward with a quo warranto about where do you think you get the authority to do this, this, and this that you're doing that breaches your oath to the Constitution, and then the notice of liability associated with, well, we know that you're part of a corporation or a franchise, meaning that you have no immunity. So this liability is on your shoulders. Any comments or thoughts on this subject? Okay, hearing none. Then one team member, I think everybody should know, one team member sent me an indictment that came out in mid-February that includes a lot of the named higher-level people in our government, including Hillary and Barack Obama and stuff, or formerly in our government, having to do with the murder of Lavoy Finicum. And it's an indictment coming from the grand jury, but again, it's signed historically means that it's really not a valid indictment. And this is the NLA's work. It's clear to me it came from the NLA, and I haven't read it all. It's about a 24-page document. So those of you that are interested, you might want to look it up because I'm sure it's a big deal for the NLA. I think a lot of good work went into it, but I think it's got to be signed by an administrative investigator, in other words, so that the accused can communicate. And then the last comment that I'd like to bring forward on the news is something that's being hidden by the mainstream media. I'd like to read to you the title of the article and then just a couple paragraphs. Former senior United Nations official facing pedophilia charges in Nepal. Okay, now this is a classic. One of the world's leading experts on humanitarian work with street children and children affected by war has been arrested on pedophilia charges. Canadian humanitarian worker Peter Dalglish, D-A-L-G-L-I-S-H, who helped found the charity Street Kids International, was taken in by police in Nepal Sunday. The Central Investigation Bureau of Nepal Police said they wanted to question Dalglish over claims he was involved in pedophile activities in the Kavra district, 50 kilometers north of the capital, Kathmandu. The initial investigation claims the 60-year-old had offered children foreign trips and better education before sexually abusing them. The chief said that the organization outside the country had tipped them off to the police. So under the guise of a community worker claiming to educate poor kids and provide necessary support, he is sexually exploiting these children. We have developed a sound network to track down and arrest pedophiles in Nepal. We've been following Daglish's activities for the last 2 weeks, and we're tipped off about his activities. Now, here is an example of a guy who is high up in many different UN organizations, and he set up a charity, and the backstory is that when Trump got elected, within about 2 to 3 weeks, he shut down the charity because he knew that Trump was anti-human trafficking. And then the rumor is that he knew that they were closing in on him, and before he got arrested, he released on the dark web a video that has evidence of Hillary and Uma doing some evil deeds. I'll just leave it at that. Can anyone tell me what is the dark web? Anybody? Dark web.
If I may?
Yes, please.
The dark web, and I've not ever been to it. I've just heard of it from others. The dark web is actually a place where it's not available to everybody. You can go there, and let's put it this way, it's probably some of the worst places of things that they, like for instance, you could probably find somebody for hire if you wanted to kill somebody. You could find it on the dark web. It's basically just a hacker's haven, for one, and it's basically all the things that probably are ugly and deep and awful about people. That's the best way I can describe it from what's been told to me. I've not been on it because I know that there's a great chance when you go on it that you will end up with having your computer hacked and different things happening. So I've just not gone down that road. But that's what I've heard.
Thank you. We would recommend no one try to go on it. In essence, what Mickey said is exactly right, but let me give you a couple more points here. About 10 to 20% of the material on the web is available when you use Google or Bing to search it. That means 80 to 90% of the material on the internet is the dark web, meaning it's unsearchable by most search engines. Exactly how it gets used I'm not familiar with, but they must have separate special search engines. And fundamentally, it is the hangout of anybody trying to do illegal or unlawful business. So it's important to know that it exists. There's a lot going on there, and it's pretty much for evildoers. Okay, I'd like to summarize that and then ask Hagen, if you're there. Hagen, could you bring us up to date on the research and effort that you folks in Marion County are doing, please? Hagen? Are you on mute?
Until they get on, can I make a comment?
What's that, please?
Yeah, until the people you're trying to get online, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
A lot of people don't understand the true Constitution for Florida. 1838 to 1865 until the Reconstruction Acts, it was actually called, and this is the proper name, Constitution, or form of government, for the people of Florida. That was our original Constitution. Reconstruction Acts changed that in 1865 after 3 attempts. 1868 is when it was changed. After 3 attempts since 1865, and the federal corporate military government would not accept it under the Reconstruction Acts until it was changed to say Constitution for the state of Florida. There's a big difference. First one is the people of Florida. The second one is the corporate state of Florida with U.S. citizens. just wanted to bring that up for information for everybody, and I'm off. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Is there any chance you would have a copy of the original one that you speak of?
Oh, sure. It's on the internet. Just go ahead and do on a search 1838 Florida Constitution. You'll find it on the archives, and I can't remember which Florida university has it, but it'll always show up. And if nobody can find it, I'll turn around and send you, Roger. I'll send you the links for it.
If you would, please. I'll get it out to everybody if you could send it to me. Thank you.
Well, it's really important because we have to understand how illegal the Reconstruction Acts were. But we have a real Constitution for the people. And like I said, the name is Constitution or Form of Government for the people of Florida. And it was that way until 1868. And it was 3 attempts by the true people of Florida, even after 1865, to keep our true land and soil and governance as a true sovereign state, a true nation alive, but we were not allowed back into the so-called Union until it was called Constitution for the state of Florida. And that's a big difference. That's a corporation. It has nothing to do with us.
Right. I'm sorry. What is your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Thomas.
Ron, R-O-N?
I'm Thomas, Sarasota County.
I'm missing the word. Sorry. Could you speak a little bit slowly?
Thomas in Sarasota County.
Thank you, Thomas.
All right. I'm going to mute, and I know you got people you want to listen to. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Hagan, are you there, please? Okay, I'm showing him there, but I guess he's not there. Okay, in the meantime then, it's 8 o'clock. We're about halfway finished. I'd like to reserve the right to go back to Hagan because we talked earlier and he has some news to bring people up to date with. But in the meantime, I'd like to go to an open mic session while I try to reach him with text. Open mic, any subject relevant to restoring the constitutional government under the rule of law.
If I may.
Yes, please.
This is Bob. That's interesting. Thomas brought that 1838 Constitution up because when Florida joined the Union in 1845, right?
Yes.
And so that would be the prevailing document that they had to submit when they joined the Union, huh?
Yes, and Hagan knows quite a bit about this. I think the 1838 was submitted, and then it was rejected, and then it was resubmitted, and it was accepted. And we don't think it was changed materially that we can tell. I learned one other nugget relative to this. At the time Florida joined the Union, they commissioned, and I don't know who they is, but maybe it was the folks that wrote the Constitution. They commissioned someone to write in longhand the common law in use in Florida at the time. That document, I'm told, is available in the library in the basement of the Florida Bar in Tallahassee. It is not on display. You got to ask for it. But that could be very, very interesting, and I believe there may be a copy available on the web somewhere. I think I've seen it. So both of those things, why are they important? And in my opinion, anything that happened after the organic Constitution was in place having to do with the Reconstruction Acts, that is all fraud, and therefore it's void ab initio, as if it never happened.
Yes, because it's corporate private law.
Exactly. So every state that I'm familiar with that is reestablishing their state assembly is going back to the last organic constitution and embracing that and bringing it forward. And that's what I think we, the people in assembly, need to do here in Florida. I yield.
Yes, and for us, I'm sorry I didn't want to interrupt. For us, it's called, and you can look it up on the internet once again, it's called the Constitution or Form of Governance for the People of Florida. And it was originated in 1838, stopped in 1868, but from 1865 to 1868, 3 times. Legislature in Florida tried to put it through under the original, and it was not allowed by the federal U.S. corporation, and the name was changed to in 1868 under Reconstruction Acts, under and called carpetbaggers, if anybody understands that term, where it had to say Constitution for the state of Florida.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Elo, thank you.
May I?
Yes.
This is real short. Basically, when it comes to the Constitution, it's first in time means first in right. I yield.
Okay. Anyone else? Any news in any of the counties? Any news in Highlands County?
I would like to know if there's anybody else besides me in Sarasota County on the line, and if you could fill me in on anything that's being done.
Yeah, let me tell you, I had a meeting yesterday with a group. There's a group called Sarasota Mortgage Justice Group, and it includes multiple counties. That's just the name of it that they selected. And it was a very productive meeting. About 1.5 years ago, Hagan and I went there and did an educational session on the grand jury. This was a refresher, and they had 1.5 years of working hard in the statutory system and getting completely frustrated. So they requested that we re-engage with them and help them learn what they need to do to get their assembly and their grand jury up and running. And that was the purpose of the meeting, about a 2 or 3 hour meeting, 2.5 hour meeting yesterday. And I will work hard to get you engaged with that group because I do think it's very promising.
Okay, just as a reminder, my email begins with Ecclesia, EKKLESIA. So Roger, if you would forward my email to them, I would love to be a part and let them understand more about a true assembly.
Okay, Thomas, I don't have a good phone here, and your words are getting slurred. So could you spell your email, please?
Yes, the beginning of it is EKKLESIA. That's Ecclesia spelled in Greek, which means church, and the other part is the Latin. You have it on your email list.
Okay. I'll look you up with EKKL. That's great.
There you go.
Thank you.
Hey, Yield, anybody else? Go ahead.
Yes. Can I get the floor?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to, like I said, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube. Anybody that's in Marion County, we just had a person on COPWATCH Facebook website contacted us in a message, and they said they've been fighting corruption there with the schools, government, and police for a long time, 10 years, and they have a ton of information and documents about corruption. In fact, they were telling us, I thought it was corrupt here, they said they met an FBI agent one time, and when they said, where do you live? She said, Marion, she said, you live in one of the most corrupt places in the nation. So if there's anybody from Marion, I would absolutely look me up on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll hook you up with this lady. I talked to her for an hour. She is awesome.
Man?
Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, could I get your information from Roger, please?
Yeah, Roger's got my stuff.
I appreciate it. I yield.
Okay, Hagen, are you there? Still showing them. Okay, what else would we like to talk about? Any other news? Everybody recalls, I hope, that we did some research recently that the evidence shows anybody that is successfully elected to public office in Florida, by the time they get through the process, must have taken and sworn 7 different oaths. Otherwise, they're not in office. And I have a list of those oaths, and I'd like people to think about how best to go forward in a productive, lawful way to educate the candidates that are positive towards the Constitution that they should take the proper oaths. So then they could become the only eligible people, in theory, under the law and under the statutes. These are both statutory oaths and constitutionally required oaths.
Is there a way that you can send it out to your email list so we can check those links also?
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Yes, could you send that out to all of us on your email list? We could also look at those links.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. That would be helpful, big time.
Okay. I would like to make sure, though, that we think through first, before you start using it, let's think through the most productive way to use it, because otherwise it could be possible to squander it if we're not careful. They may come up with some way that they may try to.
Those who doesn't presume anything and always needs to check it out first. We've all been down that road. And
no, I'd ask you to check it out. I will send it.
Yeah, well, you know, as I've also been through, just like all of us, we've been down the so-called Patriot, and that's spelled Paytroiot road, and we've been, you know, a lot of us have just had to find out on our own after we've gone down the wrong road thinking it was right. So,
right.
And not anything about you, just I check out everything now.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have I did a quick Google search, and I have the Constitution or form of government for the people of Florida up on my screen now, and it's coming, of all places, it's coming from the Florida Constitution Revision Commission site.
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
That's where I found it years ago, and was absolutely shocked that we had a real Constitution that wasn't for the corporate state.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Also read it. I did a comparison between that and state of Florida Constitution, and you'll find in the first page 3 differences. And I can't remember exactly what they all were. It's been years. But people should compare the two. Take the time and understand that the corporate constitution from 1868 on has nothing to do with the people of Florida.
Right. Very good. Thank you.
May I? May I?
Yes, please.
Roger, one thing that people need to be reminded of or aware of is that I believe all of our county, all the people that serve us, the public, needs to have a signed oath of office turned in within the time frame, which is very short after being elected, and they need to be bonded. And
not only bonded, they must also put forward evidence that they have property in the county available for sale equivalent to the value of the bond. If they don't, for example, I suspect that our superintendent of schools does not own property in the county. And if that's the case, they cannot serve in office in the county.
But that is something for people to check prior to these elections, that these people are set up to really go forward, because if they're living out of our county, if they don't have the property, and they're not aware of that they have to be licensed and bonded, then we're setting up for trouble.
Right.
I yield.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, please.
I want to speak to the National Assembly Thursday night conference call, which you're now one of the monitors on. Thank you for taking that role. Roger, I don't know if you knew you got elected last call. I assume you're on.
Yes, I was. Thank you.
I just looked at the website and talked about it with my group here in North Carolina. And the assembly should be looked at or the website should be looked at national-assembly.net, and it is very well done. Vestry and Robert did a terrific job. Very useful. It's got the handbook in there. He's got the 10 steps to implement an assembly, and a whole repertoire where we can talk back and forth with forums and all kinds of information. So just superb. Thank you for putting that together. I yield.
Thanks, Russ. I heard you on the call, too.
Okay. I think I got a recruit for coordinator from Connecticut. They have 0. It's about 4 or 5 states that don't have anybody. But
between today and tomorrow night, I'm going to be calling 3 or 4 people in different states that did not show up and see if I can't get some folks to show up for their state.
We got to get 30 people on there easily every week, and we should get 50. So.
Right.
I yield.
I have a question. Sorry, I don't mean to keep taking all the time, but okay, with the national...
Let me just interrupt you for a second. Don't forget to ask for the floor by just saying, may I? Go ahead.
Okay, may I? Quickly, I'm not totally understanding how those of us who don't have assemblies in our counties here in Florida, how we can participate in the Florida assembly to be part of the National Assembly. And I've tried to figure that out, and maybe I haven't read enough. Could you explain that?
Yes.
There's no group in Sarasota County yet.
Right. So let me tell you that, like I said earlier, there's a core group coming together, and I will get you plugged into that group. The group I met with is a subgroup of a bigger group, and they are big enough to do both the assembly and the grand jury, in my opinion, for Sarasota County. So I think we're at the stage of starting that process up. But in lieu of that process, the recommendation from the folks in Michigan who are leading the country in this process is that most states are going to first set up their state assembly. And the state assembly will be set up by just asking people to volunteer to participate in a We the People meeting in assembly for Florida or on Florida. Okay? And that meeting is yet to be scheduled, but it will be soon. and then you can participate as part of We the People meeting in assembly for Florida while you're working towards getting your county up and running.
Okay,
And the reason why they're recommending this is that they're being asked by people at pretty high levels with white hats, whether they're political leaders or military leaders, they have white hats on. They're being asked to get a consistent national assembly going of the people of at least 30 states, minimum of 30 states. Once we do that, we can vocalize through the resolutions that that National Assembly passes, we can vocalize the voice of the people. And that's what they're needing. So they're recommending that, yes, we need to do every county, but as that process is going, they are still recommending that we go forward and do the state assembly. And as soon as we schedule that, I will make sure everybody on this email list knows about it.
So then interpreting what you just said, then trying to interpret my opinion is that even if there was one representative from every county, whether we were organized or not, we can still be the state assembly and then be able to vote for how many members for the National Assembly.
Correct. That's my comprehension of how it will work.
Excellent. I yield. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, well, I did check my notes from last meeting, and I'm delinquent in getting a couple of documents out to you from Hagan, but Hagan is in the middle of updating a couple of key points on them, so they're not yet ready. One of the documents was what's the difference between the people and a citizen? Which one are you, a people or a citizen? And the other one was the evidence of the county attorney saying he took his orders from the Crown. And those two documents I've got listed. We still owe them out to you, but they're not ready yet to be published. Out of this call, I have agreed that I'm going to publish to you my research results of the 7 oaths that anyone that is successfully elected for office has to have taken in Florida if they enter the office, any public office. Don't forget that in the Florida Constitution, the Constitution of the state of Florida, so the corporate one, it does state that all of the offices are in the, quote, public trust, unquote. Now, what does that mean? I thought the word trust, in the U.S. Constitution, it says offices of trust or profit, or the reverse, it says office of profit or trust. And I thought the trust meant that it was a nonprofit government position with a fiduciary duty to the public. And the offices of for profit, if you grab your financial reports from your county, especially the CAFR account and the annual report, what you'll see is they break revenues into 2 bins, government revenues and enterprise revenues. So if you have a trash collection business or an airport or a water system, those are enterprises. Those aren't government. So I figured those offices were the for-profit offices and that the government offices were the offices in the public trust, meaning the public had to be able to trust you by your behavior and you had to be a fiduciary for the public. What I'm now learning from some research Hagan did is that that word trust means more than, quote, I trust you, unquote, as it probably means, the evidence is pointing that they've created a trust. And they've put all of our property in a trust. And they use that to manipulate the property so it's no longer private property, which is untaxable, and as a result, we get hoodwinked into the tax assessment process and the tax paying process. So I hope to have some more news about that on next week's call, but it looks like what we'll be doing is focusing on people who have been abused of their property rights in Florida, whether it's fraudulent foreclosures or any other problem, and we'll use the solutions that we're working towards on property rights to recruit people into the PMA. And that should get enough people should be interested in joining the PMA to give us some momentum to then have some membership and some money to go after some of the other lawlessness in our government. I yield.
May I?
Yes.
Okay, part of the property rights, property is different than land. And if you go and read the true Constitution for the people of Florida, some of the changes that I had mentioned earlier do show true land and soil rights. It's all wordage, okay? You know, one word changes makes a lot of difference. But I do want to say that if anybody, as I have done, wants to change the corporate, municipal, federal, lot and block, plat description of their land that they call property, the way to do it is, if you can't do it on your own, get a surveyor to give you a true meets and bounds survey, then reconvene your deed for your land to where it comes out of that system. It's a difficult road, I'll agree. I've had a lot of problems with the county not wanting to recognize it, but it's the truth, and that's the way it is, and you don't use a street number and address. There's a lot of things behind it, but there is a way to stop the property tax to the municipal corporations like the city or the town, as well as the county, because the only way they can tax you is by lot and block and plat map. And after that, I'll yield and wait for comments.
Quick question, Thomas. Have you successfully navigated that for your property or your land?
I'm in the middle of fighting it. Like I said, the county doesn't want to recognize true law. City sure as heck doesn't.
Right.
And it's not really the law, it's their codes. And codes are not law. They call them law, but they're not really law. I've started from the local level with our city, and I'm working my way up, and lots of letters, and you get all the rhetoric, going by codes and all that, but they don't apply if you've changed to where your land, the soil that you live on, that you possess, is no longer their lot and block, so to speak, that it becomes a meets and bounds as the old surveys always were prior to 1865. I mean, there's the whole key for us is how did they describe our soil and land prior to 1865? And yes, I'll agree that some cases it took a while for counties and states to catch on that lots and blocks and plat maps, had to be issued in order for them to make property tax.
Right.
But it's all corporate.
Quick question. Did you go back and do a land patent by any chance?
I researched that since 1994. I've been at this a long time. I haven't had a driver's license by state of Florida.
Can you answer my question, please? Did you get a land patent?
You can't get a land patent. I went back to the original land trust granted by the federal government for my particular land in Florida, and it was part of the railroad trust. That's as far as you can get back. There is no such thing as a land patent unless you go back to the British land patents. But in Florida, that doesn't apply because originally we're under Spanish land patents.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So you're in Sarasota, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been at this since '94.
I'm sure you can help us a lot.
There's a lot of research, but there is no such thing as a land patent because you got to remember, Florida, in particular, was a territory of Spain that was ceded probably under international law to the federal government before the Civil War, where the federal government was a different federal government than we've had since Lincoln. And, there's a difference of international treaties and new corporations that use the same name called the United States and all that garbage.
Right.
We've been hoodwinked. You can't say United States unless anymore you want to describe what it really was, what it really is, and what corporate name it's under now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Last call. Questions or comments? Open mic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this, Don, I just want to expand just briefly because I know we're running short on Thomas' call. Hear me?
You're very weak, Don. You come on strong, and then you go very weak for some reason.
All right. How's that? Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. So I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Thomas was mentioning, at least from my perspective. What the answer is that everything is copyrighted. They've copyrighted the name of your street is their fiction. It's copyrighted. That whole address is copyrighted. The meets and bounds are true. That's how you would identify that parcel, and you can put out there your own stone markers and make it your own. But the answer really is not to ask them to be involved in it at all. You just do it yourself. What you do is you get your meets and bounds, and then you create your own street address. This is, 2020, 2222 Boogie Avenue, whatever. I mean, you call it whatever you want, and you put that on that deed because it's associated with the meets and bounds, and then you put a copyright symbol next to it, so it's your copyright. So now what you've done is you've moved, they can't tax you because, number one, you have a usage fee for your names. You get where I'm going?
Yep. Keep going.
So in terms of property taxes, that's one thing. In terms of the foreclosure thing that's going on, you mentioned a group earlier. Hey, if before you get into foreclosure, if you claim your name, your trade name, claim your trade name. Okay, that's what you were given when you were born. And then 3, 4, 5 days later, a week later, 10 days later, doctors came in and forced the parents to sign a document that registered you as a ward of the state. But that means that you were first in time. Somebody mentioned that earlier in the call about first in time, first in line, first in time. Okay, and that's true. So what you can do is see everything that's on a piece of paper from a creditor, even though they've copyrighted your address, let's say, you've got the name, and they're coming after you as the name. So what you do is you copyright that name, you become first in time, first in line. So now they're a secondary creditor, and you're the priority creditor because you're before them. Then, in part of the scheme, or the resolution or the remedy that's available, that's a better word, the remedy of it would be then you use IRS Form 56, and you sign the fiduciary responsibility for that fake name, the all-caps name, to the United States Treasury because that's where everybody's getting paid anyway, right? And then what you do also is you authenticate your birth certificate and surrender it back to the Treasury, have him end it, and then what you effectively do, you murder, you kill, you decease that name. So now that fiction in all of the courts, by you surrendering it, it actually it makes it not hashable, okay, throughout their system. All the courts are banks. So you surrender it. And then so when people come to you, you can say, well, here's the guy over there, Form 56, it's his treasury. I did that. I sent it to him. And by the way, you can't get paid no matter what you do because it was surrendered, and here's proof of that. And by the way, you're using my copyrighted name, and I didn't give you permission. And then you give them a fee schedule, and then you see how you can get back control of yourself under common law. Okay? Well, all they've done is copyrighted everything. They copyrighted the street address, the street number, that lot block thing is a copyright. And so, yeah, but if they have to come after your name because they gave you control of it, made you the custodian, well, they gave you control of it, so now take control of it. Say, okay, with my name, I'm first in line, I'm first in time. That lien there, if you think that debtor is owed anything, I'll get paid first, so bring it forward. I'll accept it for its value. We'll settle this matter and have a nice day. And that's how you get rid of them.
Very good, Don. Thank you. Any questions for Don?
Thomas, if you put care of in front of your mailing address, that's not really that you're living on that number or that street. So that is a short-term way to at least deal with them, which I've had success with every time they send me something that isn't care of. As I write to them, I reject the mail because I don't live at that number. I yield.
Yep. Okay, that's a good point. And real quick, I don't want to get too much on it, but the postal thing is pretty complicated. Care of, sort of separates you, puts you, their line between you, and you're using it, and it does freak them out because usually if you have something held in care of, they send subpoenas or summonses when they're bringing somebody to court. They'll have summons to unknown 1, 2, 3, and 4 people because they don't know who they're really in possession of the property because you're saying you're care of. So, yeah, it's a whole other issue, and you don't want to do that. But really the best thing to do, which recently I've been working on, and Mickey knows a lot about it, I think Roger knows a lot about it, and others as well, is about actually creating a postal location. It's actually not create it, but make use of it. So all the general mail, the United States Post Office, the post office is actually all of our mail's free. So you can get from the mail's moved for free. What you're paying for is the delivery part of it. So you don't need the mailbox out front if you don't use the United States Postal Service. And if you don't want the mail to come to your house, you don't even have to rent the box from them because that's a service. The mail's already coming there free. You go there and you say, well, everything from this your copyrighted address, I want you to hold it here. And then what you do is then you change your address, like your business address, to the post office location. And it can't be a sub-post office. It has to be where the postmaster is. But if it's, 1121 Savannah Road or whatever the address is, bang, that becomes your address because that's where you get your mail. And you just go there and pick it up, and that's all totally lawful. So then again now, how do they serve you at the post office? You know what I mean? And it's, so yeah, there's a lot of ways in common law to, try to shield yourself from the insanity.
Well, I agree with you on that. I did general mail for over 10 years, and every time I call for my mail at the post office, the main post office, they would tell me, you just can't keep doing this. We have a 30-day limit. And I'd always ask them, where is it in law where you can say that I have a 30-day limit? And they would give me a regulation internal with the post office, and I said, well, that doesn't apply. I don't have a street address. And then, funny enough, for 10 years, it was no problem. I could always pick up my mail if I called for it at the post office. So, yes, you're 100% right.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're running a little bit over. I want to close the call unless there's one last question or comment.
Yes, may I?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Carmine from Cape Coral. Yeah, on the birth certificate, what if you were born in a different country?
I can't answer the question. I don't understand what exactly you're asking. Please ask it again.
Yes, like what he was saying before about surrendering your birth certificate or your name with the birth certificate. See, I was born in Italy, and then I became here. I became a citizen when I was here. How would that, how would I go by doing what he was saying before?
John, any comments?
May I?
Yes.
Yes.
If you're born in a different country, then in order to become a citizen in the United States corporation, you are a 16th Amendment, 14th Amendment citizen, without a doubt. It's a different circumstance because you were born on land and soil that is foreign to the United States of America, which is not what they call the corporate United States of America or United States now. You became a naturalized citizen, or you became a citizen one way or the other. Your circumstances take a different course, and I would recommend that you go to the internet site AnnaVonRights.com and just look that up on the internet, Anna Von Rights. And there's a lot of good instruction from her telling how to go about in a different manner than those of us who were born on American soil, how to get your true freedom. I yield.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you very much for your support, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everybody has a great night, and I'll talk with you all next week. Thanks again.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.